Okay, I had to
Oh,
get my little one.
so I'm recording now. Hi, this is Sakina Carter. And as I promised, I wanted to start some conversations for African American females, some of the issues that plague us. It really is a plague. It really plagues us. That's how I feel.
Hmm.
And a lot of for a lot of people, we are not able to openly talk about it. We're either
Hmm.
told to get over it, and you can chime in. This is
Hmm. Hmm.
Demetria Buie. Are you a
Hmm.
doctor yet?
I'm playing with the idea.
Okay, okay,
I've received a lot of confirmation within the last couple of days to go ahead
okay.
and
Yeah.
apply for a doctoral school. So
Why are
it
you?
may
You're like you're
it
like
may happen.
that's that stutter. Like I I want to, but I'm afraid.
It's that stutter of I want to, but I'm tired. But
Okay, 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 okay,
yeah,
okay. Yeah, that because you just finished. You just finished with
yes,
now this is your second master's degree or
yes.
okay.
So I have my first master's in counseling, and my second master's is in social work. Hmm.
Okay. Okay. Because I always thought that counseling and social work, like, because I work with social workers,
Hmm.
and one of the social workers at my job said, "Oh, well, I'm just going to go back into counseling." So, how does that work?
Okay, so with counseling, it's just dealing with straight counseling. We're looking at theories, and they're somewhat the same, but they're different. So
Okay.
counseling is just counseling. Social work, we're looking at the social systems and why,
Okay.
and how those social systems can impact society as a whole.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
I went into social work because I wanted to learn from a macro level, which is policies. Because
Okay.
as you follow me on Facebook,
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
I'm heavily into politics.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I wanted to know how policies work, how they come about, and how I could be at the table
Mm-hmm.
to help develop those policies that impact my community. So
Right. Right.
that is what drew me back to
Wow.
school to get my master's in social work. Hmm.
So I didn't like introduce you. Can you please introduce yourself?
Yeah,
Everybody, this is my very first time doing this, so it'll get better as time goes,
you do it.
but
It's awesome, and
please
plus we know each
introduce,
other.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Please introduce yourself and let the audience know what it is that you do.
Okay, so my name is Demetria Buie. I am a licensed clinical addiction specialist associate, and I am a licensed clinical social worker
Yeah,
associate.
yeah.
So,
As of a
yes,
couple of weeks ago, so that's why we're
yes, I just recently got received my LCSWA a couple of days ago. However, I've been a licensed clinical addiction specialist for about 6 years now.
wow, wow,
So, but I've been in the field of mental health and substance abuse for 20 plus years,
wow.
working from case manager to program director to
Mhm,
clinician. So
mhm.
I've dibbled and dabbled in a little bit of everything in mental health. Mm.
Okay. So how did you realize your calling to be a therapist? Was that always your goal in college, or did you realize this calling as you went along?
I think I realized it somewhat in college because my undergraduate degree is in sociology.
Hmm.
So I've always been curious on how society works and thinks.
Hmm.
So after graduating undergrad, I went on to be a case manager. And as a case manager, what I realized in mental health is I had a lot of African American clients. However, the clinicians who were serving them were not African American.
Hmm.
And so, from a cultural standpoint, and listening to my clients, and they don't understand me when they being the clinician, they don't understand me. And they
Mm.
love to see me
Right.
coming, but they hated to go to therapy. And so that kind of caused somewhat of a conflict as it related to the professional working relationship between myself and the therapist, because they're like, well, why they don't want to see me, but you're getting all this information when we're working together. So I said, okay,
Right.
you know, so that right there was the spark
Mm-hmm.
that I needed to say, okay, let me take this educational thing a little bit further and get the necessary credentials and education needed to help my people. So that is when I enrolled into my program. I want to say 2005 in North Carolina Central University. Graduated in 2007 with my master's in counseling. Went on to work in various fields, sectors within mental health, from being a program director, which was a little bit of hands off, but I
Mm-hmm.
was able to provide that oversight to the clinicians
Right.
who were working with those individuals and give a little bit of input regarding how treatment was delivered. Then I went into actually providing treatment. So
Yeah.
that is
So
what led me. Mm-hmm.
do you find that so on a direct, you say you were a director.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find that treatment for African Americans is a little different or greatly different from other demographics of people, or is it about the same as far as
It is.
mental health is concerned?
Well, it's different. I would say it is different. And the reason why it's different is because it starts back with that stigma that African
Mhm.
Americans have as it relates to mental health.
Okay.
Usually, the majority of the patients that were coming through my office
Mhm.
were either mandated to come, or they, uh, and I hate to say this, but they were looking for monetary uh, gain from it, i.e., receiving like
Oh,
a social security. Yes, that.
okay.
So I hate, like I said, I hated to say that, but it is the facts.
Right.
However, um, some were able to get something out of treatment. When we look at those issues that plague our community, which
Mhm.
is whatever happens in this house stays in this house.
Yeah. You know
Mm-hmm.
what? It's weird that you say that
Mm-hmm.
because I just saw, so I think it was on Twitter yesterday, where people were talking about the whole Will Smith Jada thing, and then they started talking about the, Beyonce and what's his name,
Mm-hmm.
Jay-Z, and
Mm-hmm.
some other African American couples who kind of air their dirty laundry
Mm-hmm.
out in the open. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and that was one of the things that the poster, she said, and she didn't say whatever happens in this house stays in this house, but
Mm-hmm.
she put like the letters. You know how they do with the letters,
Mm-hmm.
like WHI,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
and whoever grew up learning that language,
They knew what that was.
they knew
Knew what the.
exactly what
Mm-hmm.
it was that she was saying.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and initially I thought it was funny, but then I
Mm-hmm.
thought it was sad
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
that is a part of our problem, that
Mm-hmm.
we're not allowed to discuss what is happening in our homes. And
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of how that's how that that's how it continues to flow under the radar, under the
Mm-hmm.
rug. Just
Mm-hmm.
sweep it under the rug, it'll go away.
We're
But
gonna pray it away.
we're gonna pray it away,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. And it never goes away. It
Mm-mm.
always usually manifests itself in a completely
Mm-hmm.
other person.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what you encountered with your patients.
Mm-hmm. And the most important thing that I found that works in treatment is I don't come in, I meet my patients where they are. And
Mhm.
that means I don't use the big fancy smancy words. Uh,
Right.
if say for instance my teenagers, I come in, what's up, what up, and they're
Mhm.
able to relate to me. you know, and I allow them to talk in the language that they're comfortable with, and I too talk in that same language, um, and when that rapport is established, they are able to open up a little bit more. And a thing is that they are afraid of, like, are you going to tell? And I'm like, as
Yeah.
long as you don't say that you want to hurt yourself or hurt someone else, anything else is between you and I.
Right.
Or if it's abuse, then of course I'm a mandated reporter. I would have to tell. So
Mm-hmm.
they understand that.
Yeah.
But even if I have to report, I do process with them in
Mm-hmm.
regards to if it's sexual, so whatever, sexual abuse. We talk through that. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's not like I'm being deceitful or I'm just trying to get the system involved.
Right.
I'm
Right.
trying to, I want to save you and help you. And so when I come from that therapeutic standpoint, they're okay with it.
Right.
But
And they're
I
able
think
to open up and grow a little bit.
correct. And so we
Yeah.
have to have that rapport have to be present.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I think from my perspective as a chaplain, so I have my master's in divinity
Mm-hmm.
degree,
Mm-hmm.
and working as a hospital chaplain is completely different from working as a church chaplain, I find.
Correct. Correct.
In the hospital, you meet anybody. And
Mm-hmm.
what I learned was that people, even if they do have pastors, they
Mm-hmm.
are more open with the hospital chaplain than they are with their own pastor because they are afraid that they are going to get judged.
Judge.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think it's important that we reach people like what you said at their level where they are, and to gain that. And one of the sad parts about being a hospital chaplain um, was that you only get that one moment.
That right.
Some of the patients, you may have two moments, but
Right.
you have to kind of hit it home. So I think that's where I've
Mm-hmm.
learned to be just upfront and
Mm-hmm.
open about everything.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that I do is, like, I tell people, nothing really, nothing surprises me. You're not
No.
going to say
No.
anything that's going to make me shiver.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing surprises me. Let's just talk.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get into some of these questions.
Sure.
Okay. So we already talked about your degree. Congratulations.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Thank you.
so you recently lost your mom. It
Mm-hmm.
seems like you two were very close. What kind of
Mm-hmm.
mom? What kind of mom was she for you?
Oh, that I don't want to give the regular cliche answer, but my mom was the type. We come from a home in which my maternal grandparents stressed education.
Mm,
However, my mom did finish high school early. I think she finished high school at the age of 16. However, at that time, she decided to go into the workforce, so she wasn't able to uh, obtain higher her degree.
mm-hmm.
So she stressed that to us. I want you guys to go on and get your education, as they say.
Right.
So she stressed the importance of education. And so ironically, at the age, I think she was in her 60s when she earned her associate's degree. She
Wow.
retired from textiles, and she went on to go to school and to a local community college, and she earned her associate's degree in early education, not knowing, after I sat down with her, she wanted to become a teacher. Didn't know that. But my
Wow.
sister, she was able, my sister graduated, and she has been a teacher for 30 some years. So
Wow.
yeah, so it's like my sister kind of fulfilled that dream for her.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so she was able to uh, get her associates, but she never practiced. But it was just the level of success that I was able
Right.
to attain my degree. So
Right.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that's something, and I think that that story leads to the narrative that it's never too late. It's
Never.
never too
Yeah.
late to go back and at least try. If I mean, you never know what could happen, but at least try. Um,
Yes.
so was that one of the most important things that she taught you, was to your education and move forward?
Yes. Between she and my maternal grandfather, it was a saying that if it's in your head, nobody can take it away. So
Wow.
definitely, get your education, and that will
Hmm.
be the pathway to get where
Yeah.
you need. So yes, I do appreciate them stressing that to
Wow, that makes
me.
a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
If it's in your head, nobody
Head
can take it away.
could
It
take it
doesn't
away. Hmm.
matter what they take away. They can't take away what you
Your
know.
There you
And
go.
even if you lose everything, what you know could help you to recuperate everything and plus and then some.
Correct. Yes,
Wow.
ma'am.
Wow.
Yes, ma'am.
Um, I think that it's important to talk about our experiences with our mothers, because we can begin to unpack some important life experiences that
Most
we learn
definitely.
from them.
Hmm.
Some lessons are good, some are not so good.
Mm.
Um, it helps us to see our mother-daughter relationship. It helps us to see how our mother and daughter relationships affect us. Do you agree? Why or why not? Like how our
Yes.
mother-daughter. Okay.
Yes, I wholeheartedly agree, and I have to go a little bit of in the academia world.
Mhm.
I believe in attachment theory, and within
Me
this theory,
too.
if that relationship, if that bonding isn't there with your
Mhm.
caregiver or your parent,
Mhm.
then
Mhm.
it's going to impact future relationships, whether professional, personal,
Mhm.
intimate. You're going to have a stress or strain in those relationships, and maintaining uh, relationships in a quote unquote healthy manner. So yes,
Right.
I believe wholeheartedly in that.
Right. Right.
Hmm.
I wanted to talk with you because you work in the field of mental health. Mental health is very important.
Hmm.
Is this, we already talked about, is it still a stigma? Is it still stigmatized in the Black community? Why do
Hmm.
you think it's stigmatized? If it's not stigmatized, what do you think is a changing force? So, do we have the ability to kind of shift it from being a stigma and a stigmatization,
Hmm.
if that's a word,
Yeah, I know.
um,
Yep.
to being something that is normal? And I asked you this, but I used to I studied briefly under Dr. Katie Geneva Cannon. And
Hmm.
she used to say that like everybody in the world needs to be in therapy.
And
She was,
she's not lying. She
everybody
is.
in the
She.
world
I
needs
agree.
to be in therapy. How can we normalize the need for and the use of therapy in the Black community?
First of all, we need to get away from, if you get therapy or whatnot, you're crazy. No,
Right, right, right.
you're not crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Mental health is just as important, or if not important, just, well, I don't want to put one over the other because I don't want to appear biased, but mental health is just as important as your physical health. And if your mental
I
health
think it's
is
most.
down, yeah,
Yeah.
I wanted to say it. I wanted to say it, but I was like, do I,
Yeah.
don't I? But since you said it, I'm gonna agree
Right.
with you. It is, yes, it's most
Right.
important. Because if you're depressed, if you're down,
Hmm.
you're not gonna function at your best.
Right.
Um, I, and I say this, and I'm going to self-disclose. I remember when my mom passed,
Mm-hmm.
and during that moment, um I experienced depression, and I was able to identify it. I did seek the services of a colleague, a fellow clinician,
Hmm.
um, because that depression affected my schoolwork. It affected my daily functioning. It
Hmm.
affected my job performance, and I was not at my best.
Right.
And so I recognized that, and I said, you know what, I need to get out of this funk and find someone who I can talk to. talking to family and friends, and even with this whole Jada and August thing, what I'm seeing is a lot of opinions given.
Right.
Don't make opinions are just opinions. However, we have to have some type of guide and some type of modality to help us get through.
And
So
if you think about it, like I know, like I don't know how it is now, but like when I was in college, if your parent died, whether it was your mom or your dad, they gave you the rest of the semester off. They don't do that anymore. That's sad. But if you think about it, back then they had the frame of mind knowing that this person just lost probably the most important person in their lives. And so we need to give them that time to heal. Now think about people who never knew their mom and never knew their dad, but they did have somebody that was close to them that did die. It's like losing your mom or dad. You lost the most important person to you. You need that time. So they don't
I
give
wasn't
time anymore.
no, what happened, I remember very vividly, when my mom passed, I emailed my professors. All of them they were very sympathetic. They gave me a week to get all of my paperwork in right, and except for one professor. And to this day, I mean, I don't really care for him, but whatever. He was like, well, you need to go to student services and maybe, get you a note or something to be excused for my class. However, I'm still expecting you to perform.
Now, is that a society thing? Like, is that like, would he have done that too? Because I do question this a lot as an African American, and then as an African American female. I remember when I was in seminary, and I was pregnant with my second daughter, and everybody knows when you have pregnancy brain, you can't think straight, you can't, and then on top of pregnancy brain, I had complications with her. And so I just wasn't able to perform.
Your mental wasn't there.
I just wasn't there. He gave me no support, nothing. I got a D. That was like the first D I had on my transcript and everything. And then the following year, another student was pregnant. She was not Black. She was white. She was able to delay all of her assignments. Oh, she's sick. Oh, she's not feeling well. She didn't take tests. I mean, and this was the same professor. He rolled out the red carpet for her in her pregnancy. And thank God that, like before I got pregnant, I was at a 3.6 or something like that.
Right.
So I had that leeway for my GPA to fall. So like when I graduated, I was at like a 3.0, 3.1. But what if I didn't have that higher GPA?
Correct.
But I asked that because I do find that sometimes as African Americans, we are not afforded the same understanding as other people are.
Well, I'm glad you did ask that question, because it goes back to, and I want us to stop saying strong Black women or strong Black woman, because it is, let's look at historically. Let's look at the historical aspect. We are looked at, yes, we took care of masters' children. At night, we would come home, take care of our families, our husbands, yada, yada, woo, woo. And that, I'm gonna call it a stigma, stuck with us, because you guys are able to endure and still perform at your best. And so I hate that stigma that is attached to us, because no, I'm a human being. Yes, I'm a woman, but I'm also a human being with feelings, and I have the same struggles compared to my white counterparts. So yes, when my mom died, yes, I was depressed, just like that's just like any other human being. When you were pregnant, you had difficulties that's associated with pregnancy. But because we are deemed strong Black women, we're supposed to put that aside, and
Mhm.
we are supposed to still be able to perform at our best. And
Yeah.
that's just not true.
Yeah. One thing that I started doing is purposefully, sometimes I find that I have to purposefully be extra just so that they
Hmm.
can, just so that people can understand that what it is that I'm trying to say. Like
Correct.
this is really affecting me in a really negative way. And
Correct.
it's not something foreign to the human experience, but I
Correct.
have to be extra because you just don't understand. Just because I'm an African American female doesn't mean that I can automatically handle. And even if I do handle it at what you deem peak performance, it's falling off somewhere else in my life.
Correct. Somewhere else is
Right.
struggling. Another
Somewhere
area
else
is
is struggling.
struggling.
Right, right.
And
Wow.
I think that contributes to the healthcare disparity that we see. Look at African American women as it relates to pregnancy.
Right.
Well, we die at a higher rate compared to our
Yeah.
white counterparts.
Yeah.
Why? It was one story I was reading. It was an African American woman who was pregnant. She went in. She was complaining of pain. She's like, "Look, I hurt. I hurt. I really do hurt." The doctor's like,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, you're fine. We're going to send you home."
Mm-hmm.
She's like, I can't. I cannot. She said she was literally crawling on all fours because of the pain that she was in. And it was finally then that they took her seriously and hospitalized her. Now, had she had went home, what would have happened?
Right, right. And you
So,
heard about the girl this weekend, or this weekend I heard about a girl that died. She went to the hospital for preeclampsia, and they held her there for 2 days,
mhm,
and she died. And I'm
she
thinking
died. Mhm.
preeclampsia, that's pretty serious. Like,
Correct.
and I'm not a doctor. I don't know, but I always thought that if
But
you
you're a
have
woman.
preeclampsia, right? I always thought that if you have preeclampsia, they're supposed to induce your labor and take that baby out
Correct. You are right.
immediately. Okay.
However,
2 days.
was she exaggerating? Another self-disclosure. I remember in the hospital, I had surgery,
Mm-hmm.
and the doctor had already told me the night of the surgery, the night that I had the surgery,
Mm-hmm.
uh, that you're going to be in pain. She said after the surgery that evening, you're going to be in pain. So she went ahead and uh, put in an order for me to receive pain medications every 4 hours because she did not want the pain to be that intense.
Right.
I remember paging the nurse and I'm like, "Look, I'm in pain. Can I get my medication?" I'm supposed to have two pain meds. She only gave me one. I'm like, "I'm supposed to have two, according to my doctor."
Right.
Oh, well, are you? Yes, I'm hurting. And I hate to have to
And
do
see, the
this.
thing is, she did not expect you to know that you were supposed
That
to
is,
have two pain medications.
I'm supposed to have two. And I had to
Right.
tell her,
Right.
"Ma'am, I am a licensed substance abuse counselor. I know all about
Right. Right.
medications and the addictive effects of them. Give me my medicine." I just had to get rude because I'm
Right.
in
Right.
pain.
Right. Right.
You're not taking my word that I'm in pain, and it
Right.
takes for me to be ugly or semi
Right.
ugly for you to
Right.
understand.
I don't understand
So,
why is it that we have to be that way. I remember when I'm pregnant, um, so what happens when you're pregnant is when the closer you get to your birth, your body begins to relax
mm-hmm,
your ligaments so that you can
push through,
easily push
push.
the baby
Mm-hmm,
out. Mine start at week 12. It does not start later on in the pregnancy. It starts at week 12.
correct.
And because of that, it's extremely painful because my hips are constantly popping in and out of place, in and out of place.
Mm-hmm,
And it gets so bad to the point, like the bigger I get, the heavier it is, the worse it is.
mm-hmm,
I
mm-hmm,
can barely walk. This
right.
last pregnancy, I was on crutches. I told
Mm-hmm,
my doctor this, like the first few weeks of my pregnancy, this
mm-hmm,
is what's going to happen.
mm-hmm,
Um, and oh, okay. We talked about it at least 3 times because I told him I'm
mm-hmm,
going to ask when once it gets to the point where it's unbearable, I'm going to ask if I can be put on short-term disability.
Disability, right?
He never put any of that in my chart. None of the conversations that we put in my
Mm-hmm.
chart. And so when that
Mm-hmm.
time came, my boss, my whole job, like immediately signed the paper saying, yes, she needs to be put on short-term disability. The doctor's
Mm-hmm.
office denied me. And so I asked the lady, I said, I work in the healthcare profession. And
Mm-hmm.
this is the thing that bothers me. And I'm gonna have this conversation with some other people. But
Mm-hmm.
if you don't know what your
You
rights are,
correct.
you do
Correct.
not get treated the way
Correct.
you're supposed to be treated. If
Correct.
I didn't tell her, like, okay, I had to tell her, look her in her eye, and I said, like, I work in healthcare. I know
Mm-hmm.
that every single word that I have with a healthcare professional
Mm-hmm.
is supposed to be put in my chart.
Correct.
If he didn't
Correct.
put that in my chart, that's not my fault. You guys are in trouble. So y'all need to do
Correct.
something. She came back 10 minutes later with my paper signed for me to go on short-term
But
disability.
what if that was, like
What,
you
that's not the
said,
case. Right. And it's, I mean, it's usually not the case on such a widespread, um, in such a widespread case that women just don't know what it is that they're supposed to say in order to get the treatment that they deserve. So
correct?
this
Correct.
is sad. So what is your greatest heartbreak when you see what's happening to Black people in America?
It's kind of go back to what we were saying. Um, we're tired.
Mm,
It's
yeah.
it's society doesn't understand why what is happening is happening. We have 400 plus years of trauma. I'm gonna just say it's
Yeah,
trauma,
that's what it is.
untreated
Right.
trauma. And you know, I hate to see some of the comments that are being made on social media and other platforms. Like, I don't understand, why this is happening. Why are they doing this?
Mm-hmm.
And I,
They.
speak that
God, I hate that.
that I hate that. And I'm like,
Yeah.
it just got to the point to where I'm not educating you,
Mm-hmm.
not for free anyway. Now,
Right.
if you like to sign up for a workshop, I would gladly facilitate that workshop, but I'm not educating you
Right.
for free when you could easily just turn on CNN and see what's going on. It hurts my heart to see that we still are where we are. Yes, we
Mm-hmm.
had a little bit of breadcrumbs thrown to us.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we're able to go to school. Yes, we're X, Y, and Z. But in the eyes of society, I'm just another N word
Right. And I mean,
with a
yeah, we're
degree.
able to go to school, but are we able to get jobs? Because I was looking at statistics last week, and they were saying that white Americans are 78% more likely to get hired after graduating from college than African Americans are. And even if we are hired, we still get paid at a
Our pay.
lower
Mm-hmm.
rate than what white. Why is it? Why is it? Am I not as qualified? Or like I've heard people say, well, I was overqualified for the job, so they
I
didn't.
have, yes. Yes. I've
I
heard
just
overqualified. I'm like, well, wouldn't you want me as an overqualified person?
right. And I think the part that bothers me the most is when I hear quotes or speeches from people like Malcolm X back in the day,
Yes.
who talked about the exact same thing. Like, if you listen to their speeches,
Yes.
yeah, we go to school, but we have not advanced anywhere.
Anyway, yeah.
They say African American women are we have the most, we're the demographic with the most college degrees and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. We're the demographic that gets more disrespected in the workplace, outside the
Come on.
workplace, in the
Mm-hmm.
street, at the store.
Mm-hmm.
Where is our protector? So I think that's what breaks my heart the most about society is hearing the words that were spoken 40, 50, 60 years
It's
ago,
still applicable.
and it's still extremely applicable. It's not even like, oh, well, that part of what he said isn't true. No, everything that he said back
Everything.
then is still true right now. And so I
Correct.
think that's the part that upsets me. That upsets me the most.
Yeah, we're still, we still, like I said, we have a little bit of breadcrumbs. You know, we're gonna throw you a little bit of something,
Breadcrumbs, right?
but
Right.
I still have to work 10 times as harder than someone, and I hate comparing the whole HBCU to PWI thing, but it is the truth.
Yeah, I hate
I,
to say that. Yeah.
you know, I was in placement. Of course, you know, we have to do practicums and whatnot. I was in placement with social work students from UNC.
Mm-hmm.
And here I am, North Carolina Central. And I could see the treatment was a little bit different compared to me, you know, between the two of us.
Right.
And just one day I had to call it out. I'm like,
good for you.
What's the problem?
Right.
You know, yes, she goes to UNC, but trust, I can probably run circles around her regarding the knowledge that I've obtained from NCCU.
Right.
Don't get
Right.
it twisted, because the
Right.
one thing I do and I love about our HBCUs, they prepare us for the real world.
Yeah,
They
you're right.
prepare us. You have to be 10 times or 20
That's
times better
Right.
than your colleagues.
Right.
So show
Right.
what you know.
Right.
And so I had to call that out.
Yeah.
So, you know, let's
Good for
but
you. I'm glad that you did.
it's still there. That
Yeah.
is still present. So yes, we still have to work harder, if not harder than our white counterparts,
Right.
just to
Right.
have a seat in the room, not even a seat
Right.
at the table, but just to be
Right.
in the room.
Just to
So
be in
yeah.
the room. Right. My husband, he's like, into sports and everything, and he was so excited because some Division I guy, and you probably
Yeah.
know who this is.
Yes, he left Wake Forest to
Right.
go to a
To go to
HBCU.
Howard University. And he, my husband was like, "This is huge." And then I think
Yes.
last week somebody else did the exact same thing.
Yes.
We
Yes.
really do need to, and I think that goes to us being taught how to value the schools that we attend as well. We need to be taught how to, and I think that this would help with us with how to value, the HBCUs, and value the lessons that they give us.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
in the wake of what's happening, protests, police deaths, racist symbols being torn down, and possible changes, I said possible, not changes, but
Not pop.
possible
You're right. I
changes
understand.
in laws concerning Black people, why, in your opinion, is mental health and having access to therapy and other mental health support resources so important right now? That's the
Let me
word.
tell you. I but I caught all of it.
Okay.
The thing about it, it is important right now because it is emotionally and mentally draining.
Mm-hmm.
It is. I just looking at everything that's going on, being a part of these protests, being looking at it on TV, being a part of what's going on, just having Black children, it can have an effect on you mentally.
Mm-hmm.
I could be sending my child out and, I'm looking at the watch. Okay, it's been 15 minutes. Let me go and find out what's going on.
Right.
I've had this discussion with many of my friends, just a casual conversation, and she called me in tears because she has 2 boys, and she's like, I fear for my children that they are going to be deemed dangerous, and they're just all because they're big and Black.
Right. Well, just Black. They don't even have to
Just
be big anymore.
That's true. Elijah
Right.
McClain, 140 pounds wet.
Right.
So it's just right now is the time to utilize mental health services. I mean, we are now in the age of teletherapy. You don't even have to leave your home. You can have a
Right.
clinician
Yeah.
Zoom you
Right.
or call on the phone
Right.
and talk. And I think right now it is just a need.
Mm-hmm.
I even for myself, I mean, just
Mm-hmm.
looking at everything that's going on, I have to not turn to CNN. And I'm a big news person because I love to know what's going on around
Mm-hmm.
me. But
Mm-hmm.
I have to take a break from
Mm-hmm.
just looking at the news because it can drain you emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at some of the you have to take a break from social media. Looking at some of the comments,
Right.
you know, like it or not, this administration has made it very, very comfortable for racists to come out and
Mm-hmm.
exhibit their true feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be draining.
Yeah.
So it
It's
is right.
heartbreaking.
It's heartbreaking, draining,
Mm-hmm.
emotionally, mentally, and right now is the time to utilize uh, a therapist.
Right.
We have a whole directory of African American and people of color therapists that are available that does teletherapy.
Mm-hmm. Now, are you, because I know like something like my therapy office, they're offering free therapy because of the whole COVID-19 thing. Is that
Yes.
still like is that like nationwide or?
I'm not sure about nationwide. I can only speak for North Carolina. We in certain areas. My agency that I work for, we do provide. We've already discussed.
Mm-hmm.
We're not coming back into the office till December,
Wow.
and that'll give us time to look at the numbers. Right. I flat out said I am not comfortable because I fit into the at risk, one
Right.
of those subgroups. So
Right.
no,
Right.
I do not feel comfortable having face-to-face therapy.
Right.
And I'm blessed to have work for an agency who actually listens and agree. We are not going
Mm-hmm.
to do face-to-face therapy right
Right.
now. We are going to
Right.
do teletherapy. And it's not, some patients want to be seen face to face, and unfortunately now isn't the time. It's just too unsafe right
Mm-hmm.
now to do
Mm-hmm.
face to face.
Mm-hmm.
So thankfully North Carolina is one of those states that have approved us to continue teletherapy.
Good. Well, I want to say this before we move on, that your
Hmm.
camera, your lighting keeps going in and
Oh, I'm sorry,
no,
let me
I
turn
just
my
want to
lamp on.
make sure that everybody sees you.
Okay, there
Yeah, I
we
want to
go.
make sure that you're seen. Yeah.
Okay, there we
Okay.
go.
Okay. So how can having better mental health help Black activists who are working with lawmakers?
Hmm. Having that outlet to say what you want to say.
Mm-hmm.
Because when working with lawmakers, we all know, and I've learned um, in my practicum, which was going to the North Carolina House of Representatives and listening to these meetings and actually being in the room with these policymakers,
Mm-hmm.
you can't say what you want to say and not come off as angry.
Mm-hmm.
So, with that being said, you have to have that outlet. And that is what therapy is for.
Mm-hmm.
Having that outlet for someone, you could just say what you want to say and get all your feelings out, feel
Mm-hmm.
better, be able to go in and fight the next day
Mm-hmm.
with
Mm-hmm.
and so you're able to be heard, because when we go in and we rah,
Right.
it's a
That's
deaf
just their
ear. You
reason to say, no, can't hear you.
that the cave
Right.
to yes,
Right.
it's going to fall on a deaf ear.
And
So you have to.
another thing that I don't want to see happen is having these, I don't want to, this is just a lack of a better word because this is what's coming up in my mind. It's like cheap and cheesy solutions to a bigger problem. So I'm glad that Black Lives Matter is plastered on the street in front of Trump Tower, but that's not enough for
Mhm.
me. You
No.
know, I'm
Mm-mm.
glad that some of these statues are coming down, whether by force or by law, but that's not enough for me. I want people who represent, you know, this community in front of lawmakers who can see the scheme of, well, let's give them just a little bit, but not enough. And I don't want people who go and talk to these lawmakers to say, oh, well, yeah, that's good, that's enough. At least they gave us that. I want somebody that's mentally capable to see the tricks when they see it, when they hear it and see it, and to be able to kind of call it out and say, well, no, let's renegotiate this, that. Is that something that you think is possible, or?
Yes, it is possible. But the thing is, it goes back again, you have to have that outlet to get all of the rage and the anger out of it, because you got to take the emotion out of the message. Right. You can't convey a message. I want to. They're going to look at you and still do what they want to do. So you have to have that outlet to get down. Like, let me tell you about this. And then get it all out. Get all the anger and the frustration out, and then be able to go back into that policy room and say, with a clear mind, a clear vocabulary, minus the emotion, and get what you need done. It's a shame that we have to do this, because I've seen Caucasian lawmakers go in and just flat out be cursing in the policy rooms, in these rooms. But unfortunately, we are not given that privilege to do such. So we have to kind of conduct ourselves in a appropriate manner. So that's why therapy, I do feel that therapy is very important, just to have that outlet to take the emotions out, so we are able to communicate, and for it, most importantly, to be heard and taken into consideration.
Yeah, you got to be very, very smart about how you do it. And like you said, go in without the emotion, but just with the facts.
They love statistics. I mean, they want data. They want the data. They don't want to hear opinion. Show me where you can get this from. Show me where this data come from, and I may
consider it. That's the thing. So I'm planning to do a discussion on Black women's experience with white women. Can you give a story of an example with a white woman that may have impacted you in a positive or negative way? And what were your takeaways from that experience?
Okay.
Pick one.
Okay. It goes back. I was actually a part of this task force, suicide task force among children. And I was just a student, and I was in the background. It wasn't my experience, but it was the experience of my supervisor. But it did have an effect on me. And it opened my eyes as to why I and other individuals of color are needed in these discussions. In discussing the suicides among of children of color, well, it wasn't children. It was children, but it happened to have been children of color. We were discussing ways that we could introduce to the House, to the North Carolina Senate and the House, ways that we could possibly make some of these suggestions into policy. When suggestions were given regarding, well, let's try to make this applicable to everyone, not just a certain demographic. In order to make this applicable for everyone, what is it that we have to do? Gather data from everyone. Because if you go to one specific demographic, it's not going to be applicable to the other demographic. I.e., you can't just go into the neighborhood that you feel comfortable going into and not gather the data from the neighborhood that you don't feel comfortable going into. Especially what is happening is affecting the neighborhood that you don't want to go into.
So
we have to be proactive in making these policies and making it
Mm-hmm.
work for everyone. Well, we were pushed, some kickback was pushed, some resistance was pushed. Well, this and that. Well, no, we have to.
Mm-hmm.
We have to. That's why we continue to see these children commit suicide, because one was, he had difficulty. He was from overseas, and he was having difficulty assimilating into the United States. Well, we have to go into maybe the mosque. We have to go into the neighborhood and get the data. Like, look, what is it that we can do to help you to decrease the likelihood of suicide among your children?
Right.
But we have to go in there, and you can't say, well, I'm uncomfortable.
I'm uncomfortable every day.
15
Yeah.
minutes, 20 minutes, it's in a mosque is not going, or hour, 2 hours gathering the data is not going. You can deal with that being uncomfortable
Right.
for that long to gather the necessary data. But that's what I've learned. That's what made me very uncomfortable. It opened my eyes into realizing that, hey, we need to be in these rooms making these
Right.
decisions, because a lot of these policies are going to affect us that are made by them.
Right.
So that was just one of my experiences, indirectly,
Mm-hmm.
uh, that had an effect. Well, I would say a positive effect, because it made me want to go harder to make my presence known and get a
Right. Right.
seat. I would even bring my own seat to the table, but I just want to be at the table to
Right.
give my
Right.
input, because you
Right.
can't say, hey, we're going to make this policy for everyone, and Raheem and Renee isn't included. Their information and their input isn't included into this
Right.
policy.
That's like the medical system only studying the white male body, but treating female bodies based on what they found in white male bodies.
Totally different. Totally
It's
different.
asinine. It's ridiculous. So
It
yeah,
is. It is. And this is why I am pushing, we are really needed in policy. We are
we
needed
are
in
needed.
in politics. We really are.
Yeah,
We really
yeah.
are.
Wow. So Dr. Joy DeGroy, I don't know if that's how you pronounce
I
it.
don't know how to pronounce
DeGroy,
DeGrew,
DeGroy.
Larry. Yeah.
Yeah. She wrote a book and does an excellent didactic on post-traumatic slave syndrome. She's
Mm.
amazing, first of
I
all.
love
Like,
her.
oh my God.
She is so unapologetic.
Right. And I love that about her, that she's unapologetic. So you have had a chance to read her
Hmm.
her book on and her didactic. How can taking advantage of mental health resources? Well, we've already discussed all of that. I think we're
Well,
done.
I think, she pushed on something that really made sense, and I think that we really need to take into consideration when she
Mm,
was discussing the social learning theory, and how, if we are in an environment and we're learning from that environment that may
mm,
be positive or negative,
mhm,
and then we are normalizing it, and then that norm being normalized, it is now called their culture. This is how they act.
mhm,
And I really liked how she pretty much summarized everything
mhm.
as it related to slavery. 400 years of untreated trauma,
Right.
400 years of seeing, your significant other's soul, seeing your children's soul, seeing your sister raped, and
Mhm.
not being able to receive treatment,
And not even being able to help them
not even being
during
able
that
to
traumatic experience.
correct, correct. And so, you
Complete
know,
powerlessness.
how that PTSD, them symptoms of, feeling, having of a short-lived life, you know, I hear it time and time. I remember when I was living in DC and I was doing therapy there, and, you know, working with some of my adolescent boys.
Mm-hmm.
Miss D, I'm lucky if I live to be 25. You know, it's just having that,
Right.
you know, feeling, okay, I'm not going to live long. You know, the
Right.
outburst of anger, you
Right.
know, you know, difficulty sleeping, all of that is symptoms of PTSD.
Right. Right.
But because that PTSD was never treated, and then it was
Mm-hmm.
passed from generation to
Generation.
generation to
Yeah.
generation, it's like,
Right.
okay, well, this is how this is how they act.
Right.
No, this is not how we act. We are trying to, you know, get through what it is, you know, that
Mm-hmm.
society has been put on us for so
Mm-hmm.
long. You know, it's
And
just unchecked trauma.
one thing that she did speak on also was for non-African American, for Caucasian Americans, how it affected them.
Mm-hmm.
Because you know, you grew up, your grandfather, your great grandfather was a slave owner, and
Correct.
you
Mm-hmm.
learned to expect this, that, and the other, and then your grandfather did it, and then your dad did it, and your mom did it.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're doing it. And so I really think that I remember when I saw her didactic on it, I thought, wow, I hope she gets huge. You know, like, I hope this just blows up, because it kind of felt like this is the answer to everything, which I know isn't, but it just
Mm-hmm.
felt like, wow, what she's saying makes a whole lot of sense.
It
And
does. It
even
really
as a
does.
white person in this country, if you can look at your experience from what she's saying, seeing how, you know, seeing how your parents and your grandparents and your great grandparents, how that taught you to expect certain things of us.
Mm-hmm.
It's all just generational, generate from generation
Social
to generation.
learning theory. You know,
Social learning
you're
theory.
learning, and then you're learning from your environment, and then
Right.
you expect that to be normalized.
And it's
No, it's not.
not.
It's
Right.
not.
Right. Right.
It's really not.
I'm kind of glad, because one thing that I do notice now is there are more people pushing back from that narrative, more African Americans pushing back from that narrative. And as a result, their counterparts, their friends who are white or non-African American, they seem to be, so a lot of people seem to be waking up like, oh my God, this really is, you know, an issue. Um, so yeah,
Mhm. I think COVID, and I hate to say this, but it's actually true.
mhm,
This this isn't new. You know, from the
mhm.
first videotaped beating of police brutality, which was Rodney King, to Eric Garner, to uh uh
Sandra Bland.
Sandra Bland.
That guy
Yes.
beat the hell out of her. And
Yes.
I showed my kids, and my daughters are 7 and 9 right now, but I have to be honest with them about what's happening.
What's right.
And you know, I showed them a video of a cop was beating the hell out of a 14-year-old girl. You know,
Yes.
like,
Yes.
where is it okay for for any of it?
It's
You know,
not okay, but
right.
the thing about COVID has slowed everything down.
Yeah.
And now everyone is saying, "Oh,
Right. Right.
it does happen." You know, there was no reason
Right.
for this man to be killed. He was
Right.
handcuffed. All you had to do was put him in the car.
Right.
But I think it resonated to America when he called out for his mom. And one woman
Mm.
had made a statement that when he called for his mom, every mom around the world heard his
Heard
call.
that.
And
Right.
so,
Right.
you know, now that we are
Mm.
slowed down and we are looking at,
Mhm.
we are able to just
Mhm.
slow down, not even do anything. We're working from home. We're looking
You
at
can't
TV.
escape it.
Yeah,
Right.
like, oh
Right.
wow, it is a such thing as police brutality.
Right.
And
Right.
you know, I'm not to bring politics in it, but you know, everyone got upset when Joe Biden said that this George Floyd thing was a little bit bigger than Martin Luther King. And
Mhm.
it is a little bit of truth in that, because
I can
yes,
see that. Yeah.
Martin Luther King did die, and it impacted the United States. George
This is
Floyd
in
death,
the world, right?
it impacted the entire world. We had
Right.
protests going on even to, I think it was yesterday, in
Yeah.
China. Black
Yeah.
Lives Matter in China. You
Yeah.
have it all over the world.
Yeah.
And people all over the world is seeing that African Americans, the
They feel
police
sorry
brutality.
for us.
Yes, it is. And so it just behooves me to hear
Right.
people like, well, why did he say that? Joe Biden shouldn't have said that. Well, it's truth in it. It is really
Mm-hmm.
truth. His
Mm-hmm.
death, and I hate that he had to die, but at
Mm-hmm.
least his death isn't in vain, because now it has called attention to the
Right.
not just the United States, but the entire world, that there is a problem
There's a
that we need
problem.
to address.
Right. Right. Right.
Mhm.
Right. Wow.
Mhm.
So we are done with our,
Okay.
I'm done with my questions, actually.
Okay.
Woo!
I enjoyed this. This was very
Yeah.
much needed. Yeah.
Thank you
Yes.
so much for your time.
No
Um,
problem.
so any words that you have to say to people about mental health?
Just, if you feel that you need therapy, because we all need therapy. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
even therapists needs therapy.
Mm-hmm.
There is no shame in having a unbiased
Mm-hmm.
individual that you can
Mm-hmm.
go and you can talk to for 45 minutes, and with no judgment or no uh you know opinions,
Right.
anything. So
Right.
definitely, if you need a therapist of color, I always advocate for www.therapyforblackgirls.com if you are female, and www.therapy for black men, I want to say black, yeah, .com, I want to say, or .net,
Mm-hmm.
to find a therapist of color, or African American male or female therapist.
This was great. I like,
It was.
when we first started, I told you like, oh my God, I'm so nervous. Like the dog has stopped barking. Like my
Yeah,
family downstairs, they were going crazy. 'Cause sometimes, like he plays with the kids and it's like,
right.
ah, I was like, oh, don't do that. But I really
No
appreciate this
problem.
conversation because it really does need to, it really needs, there are plenty of conversations that need to happen.
I agree.
That I wanted to start the conversation with mental health first
Yes.
because
Yes.
I
It's
think
nothing.
that
Yeah.
if we can get, just like what we said at the beginning, your mind, if we can get our minds to change,
Mm-hmm.
we can change our whole bodies.
Mm-hmm.
I
Hmm.
was reading a book, not reading, I was listening to it the other
Yeah.
day, and he was saying like lull yourself to sleep and with the words, and say to yourself, I am in perfect health. I am doing this. I am doing that. And I don't know how it works, but you know how it works. And that's all
If
that
you
matters.
say it, if you think it, it will come to pass. Remember, I
Right,
mean, not to be, bring religion in, but life and death is in power of the tongue. So is
right, right.
mental thinking. If you think it, it will manifest. If you think negatively, it will not. So we have to
Hmm.
change that mind frame,
Right.
and it will come to fruition.
One thing I did want to ask, which I didn't think about until today, because I'm a chaplain,
Hmm.
so I'm
Hmm.
clergy, and I'm talking to a mental health
Hmm.
professional. Um, what are the advantages of seeking counseling from a mental health profession as opposed to your pastor?
And I'm not opposed to getting uh, treatment from your pastor
Hmm.
if that pastor has the correct credentials.
Right.
I have seen and heard stories from patients where a pastor gave, well, what I would do,
Hmm.
and it's not about what I would do. You have, as professionals, we put it out there and we make you think about it. Now, how would this better your life, or how would it be a disadvantage of your life, to your
Hmm.
life? So we don't make the decisions. We just get posed to questions that will actually make you think and look at
Hmm.
both sides of the coins.
Hmm.
Um, And somehow, it just, we have these pastors and individuals in these positions who are not trained
Mm-hmm.
to give that type of
Right.
assistance. I'm
Right.
being very, very
Yeah.
careful with my wording, to
Right.
give that type of assistance, because I feel that from a spiritual standpoint, yes, you're
Mm-hmm.
definitely there.
Mm-hmm.
From a clinical, when it gets into that clinical area, yeah, it's time to
Mm-hmm.
refer out. It's
Mm-hmm.
definitely time, because
Yeah.
I have uh, individuals who have their masters in divinity. Say if a patient wants to come to me from from a spiritual standpoint or from a
Mm-hmm.
religious standpoint, that's not I don't have that divinity background. So
Mm-hmm.
I refer out, like,
Right.
okay, let me get you someone
Right.
who is able to assist you. And
Right.
so I refer out, and the same thing has to occur,
Mm-hmm.
from the church standpoint. If it's
Yeah.
spiritual, that's all you. But if it get into
Right.
that clinical depression,
Right.
hearing voices, that schizophrenia, it's time to refer out to the
Right. Right.
professionals.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that
Yep.
like, I don't have a problem with people, because one thing that I find as clergy is, they'll get into their story, and then they'll say something that they feel is inappropriate, and they'll say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that," and I'm like, it's fine, I'm okay with that. But
Right.
I think that for the patient's betterment, it is better to go to a clinician, you,
Yeah.
because even though I'm okay with hearing whatever comes out of your mouth, you're not okay with saying whatever needs to come out of your mouth to me, because you think, oh God,
Mm-hmm.
whereas to a mental health professional, they can say, "Oh, I don't give a F," and
Right.
really mean, "I don't give an F," you know, you know,
Right.
and
Yeah.
not
And
feel
yeah.
bad
Yep.
about,
Yep.
what
Now.
did I,
Yep.
yeah. So that
Yeah.
I think that that's
I
a
I
a
think,
big
but
part.
I know you, Keno. You're that clergy that say whatever you have to say,
Yeah,
and you don't have to
it's
be,
not widespread.
sense.
Right, right,
And unfortunately, it's not, because then you're not meeting your client or your patient where they are. You have to be able to be comfortable,
right,
and you have that level of comfortability where, hey, just say what you want to say, and I'm
right,
not going to judge you. But like you
right.
said, it's not widespread.
Yeah, and even if
So
they do say what they want to say, to me as a clergy person, that still makes them uncomfortable because they said it to a clergy person. And
mhm,
so that's why I think that just having that mental health professional is so important,
mhm,
um, because you can honestly say, I think that that's where most of our healing comes from, is getting
mhm,
that energy out of your system. And something, because I know, like, for me, I am a survivor of childhood sexual trauma, and
mhm,
I'm also a survivor of adult rape. And
mhm,
so sometimes my anger level or my anxiety gets so high that the
mhm.
only way to let it out is to curse, or
And say
something
some
like that,
choice words. Yep.
say some extremely choice words. Um, and I think that if everybody knew that there is this place where you can go and say those choice words and not feel guilty about your words that you have to say.
And
Um,
I totally agree. Like I said, I'm that clinician. If you and each
mhm,
patient is different. I have my
right,
patients where I can just come in and say, now now let's think
right,
about this. Now
right,
that won't right. And where
right.
I have those patients where I'm like, okay, well, how does that make you feel? You have to be
Mhm,
able to switch up and meet your patients where they are.
right.
So yeah. So if you want to curse, if you want to, just don't throw anything, but just get it all,
Yeah, yeah.
get
And
it
I
all
find that
out.
most of the time, if you curse or if you just let the steam out of your mouth, you won't want to throw anything anyways.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes, I don't know. So
Sometimes I have had, with teenagers,
yeah,
they want to,
yeah,
but
they haven't
uh,
gotten there yet.
yeah, yeah. So, I
Right.
do let them do what they need to get done to get out whatever they need to get out. So, yeah, I definitely agree with you.
Right. Well, thank you so much for your time.
No problem. No
So if
problem.
you are somebody who needs therapy, please, can you please give the two websites? If you are an African American
Yes.
female who needs therapy, where can you go?
It's www.therapyforblackwomen.com. Um, if you put in your zip code,
Mhm.
it'll give you a name of all the female clinicians in your area. And you get a little bio, you get a picture of them, so
Okay.
you'll see who you're talking to. And many, like I said, are offering teletherapy.
Mhm.
So if that's not on the bio, definitely when you call, you can definitely ask.
And you can get teletherapy because everybody has internet capabilities on their. Well,
Yes.
I don't know what everybody's situation.
Well,
Well, I'm sorry, but
some
yeah.
people, and then it goes back to what age you are in. I see my older
Mhm.
patients, they kind of struggle with these smartphones. So I just do they kind
Telephone.
of they struggle a little bit, but
Right,
I
right,
walk them through the process. So
right, right,
yeah, it's a little struggle for them, but yes, mostly everyone is offering teletherapy right now.
right.
And if you are an African
Male.
American male
Mm-hmm.
seeking therapy, is www.therapy for black men. I'm not sure, I think it's .net, that
Okay.
you can same thing, put in a zip code,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll see all the African American therapists that are available. But if that's not it, please Google it, therapyforblackmen.com, and therapy for black men. And I'm like I said, I'm unsure if it's .com or .net, but
Mm-hmm.
definitely Google it and it'll show up for you.
Thank you very much for your time.
No
So this
problem.
is our first discussion. We will have many more. Hopefully, if you have any, well, we can discuss that after I stop the thing. But I hope that you enjoyed this video. We think I keep wanting to call you Dr. Buie.
Go ahead and speak it into existence.
I don't know why, but I do. Okay, so
Speak it
uh,
into an existence.
speaking those things as though they were not. So we thank you so much for everything that you said. Thank you for having this conversation, and I will see you guys on our next. I don't even know what this is. This
Episode.
our next episode. God bless.